Hi, friends. Today I welcome Raina on the podcast. She shares with us her two birth stories. Her first birth being at a birth center, which was not quite what she was expecting it to be. So when she got pregnant again, she knew she had to plan something different. She wanted a birth where she was the authority in her space. She wanted to take her power back from her first experience, so that's exactly what she did. She went on to have a beautiful sovereign birth at home with her husband, her son, and her birth keeper present. Raina is a powerful example of what I talk about so often in the birth space. It is never too late to take back your power and birth on your terms.
So my first birth was 3 years, 4 months ago. My son is almost 3.5. We were actually living with my in-laws at the time. So I originally wanted to have a home birth with a midwife, and that's the way I was raised. My mom had all four of us at home. Actually, it was under Georgia law at the time that licensed midwifery was not legal. So my mom technically had four free births.
That's amazing.
So she had she had attendants, she had like lay midwives present. But it was not, under the typical like medical model. So my mom never
Yeah.
had ultrasounds or anything like that. So I kind of learned from her originally. So I wanted a home birth, and then we were living with my in-laws at the time, so that wasn't really like feasible for me in the during that time, because I wanted the privacy. So I was like, okay, what's the next best thing? And we decided on a birth center. And so that was my plan. My in-laws actually ended up leaving for like 6 months, so I could have had my home birth, but that was all unexpected. So, anyways, so we my first birth was pretty short. It was like 3 hours, 45 minutes, like just under 4 hours. Yeah, it was super
Wow.
fast. And we initially were supposed to be going to like our local birth center, which was only like 25 minutes away, 20 minutes away from our house. Um, yeah, 25 minutes. But the midwife that was on call at the time was not, she was like an hour and a half away. And there was a mom giving birth down in the center that was like 45 minutes from our house. And so they were like, you need to come to this one. And so we were like, oh my goodness, I was kind of freaking out because I was already like in transition by the time we were ready to leave because it was so fast.
And did you
So,
know that as it was happening? Like, were you like aware of where you were in the in the birth?
um, not really. Like I didn't have a word for it. Like I knew what transition was, but like I didn't I felt the intensity. Like I knew it was happening really fast. I was having really, really close together contractions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling, I'm trying to remember. I did feel nauseous. I probably threw up once, I think, during that labor. So the intensity was building and it was all really close together. And when we were on the phone with the midwife, she was one of the ones that actually said, she was actually one of the ones that said, I think that you need to hurry and get here because, you sound like you're getting towards the end there pretty much. So I really, like I knew, but I didn't know, and it was, I should give some preface to that. I actually used castor oil with my first because at the time, um, we had like probably five midwives at the birth center, and I didn't really vibe with a couple of them. And that's one of the problems with birth center births. You don't really get to choose your midwife. So I was like afraid that I would go into labor when the ones that I didn't want were on call. And so it was pretty much out of fear. And also I had family in town, my sisters were in town, and I really, it was Christmas time, and it was like, I just wanted everybody to be there. Like all of these reasons that I, of course, later realized were terrible reasons. That was something I learned from my first birth. So I did do the castor oil, and I went into labor very quickly, but I was already 39 weeks. So I think that I was actually I was already really close. I was probably going to go into labor naturally really soon anyway. So I learned from that in hindsight. For me, it happened very like intensely, and I was really taken off guard actually, because I was like, whoa, like I'm not getting time, like I'm not getting breaks. I don't feel like this is this is really intense and really fast. So that
Yeah.
was kind of like I was not prepared for that. um it was not something, and actually I felt like it was kind of glamorized to have short births before that. So when I had heard and read birth stories and watched videos, I was like, wow, short, like that sounds great. And then it was like way more than I didn't expect that, and it was a lot to handle. Everything was just
Yeah.
like on top of itself.
Yeah, I think
So
people don't realize how intense the sensations can be in precipitous labors. And yeah, sometimes it's
very,
harder than longer labors because of the intensity.
yeah, there's like no breaks. I mean, you get breaks like probably in the first like 30 minutes, and then after that it's like a train wreck. Um so I was everything was really like on top of me, and then the idea of driving in the car, I was just trying to like cancel everything out around me. I was just like in the zone, but then my husband was like running around packing everything up because like honestly we thought that we had all this time. So like I had things ready to go like a couple weeks in advance, but I don't know, it was just a lot. So then we finally get in the car, um and the car ride is horrible. I mean, it's just the worst thing ever. My husband is like going really fast, obviously, because we're 45 minutes away. And I'm like, you can't sit down in a car having like in transition. That is just horrific. So
Hard.
that was really awful. And then when we get there, the midwives and well, I don't even know who was there. Like my eyes were closed most of this birth. It was like so hard to like picture everything that was going on, everybody that was around me. But there was, I think, the midwife assistants and like maybe one of the midwives. I'm not sure who met me outside. And it was in the middle of the night, so um, it was dark, and like I got out of the car, and I remember them like helping me walk into the building, and because I was like having contractions, like getting inside. And then when I got inside, we got into the room, like we walked in the hall. I just remember like the bright lights, and I saw a picture of Mary giving birth on the wall. Like I'm sure you've seen that artwork, like a lot of women have.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, wow. And then of course, like the next contraction, because I had no breaks, right? So then we get into the room, like it's all pretty quick, it's not a big place. And then I get in there and they like pulled my pants down and like put me on the bed to check me. Like there was no question, there was no telling me anything. They were just like, okay, we're gonna check. They might have said that, I think, like, okay, we're gonna check. And they just pulled my pants down and like laid me on the bed. And I was like, whoa. And I was like having a contraction, and they're checking me, and they're like, okay, you're 7 centimeters dilated. And I'm like, okay, like I didn't really have time to process that, but like it felt weird. Like it felt kind of violating. And then I
Yeah.
was like, I don't like that. And then they had the tub ready for me because I had told them ahead of time. Okay. So then I get into the tub, and things are progressing pretty quickly. I feel it, and I'm on my hands and knees, which is where I feel comfortable. That's my intuition. My doula was there supporting me. She was doing really good. And then um, I was told to change positions, like to try something else, and I didn't like that. Like my first initial reaction was like, why do I need to change positions? But like, okay, I'm being told maybe I should do that, right? So they're like, let's get into a squat. Like, and that was horrible. I did not want to be in a squat. I did not feel comfortable that way. It was not fun for me. And I'm being supported there by my doula, who was like basically just following along with everything they're saying. And I didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah, I know, like, for her in that moment, of course, she doesn't know better or whatever. She just thinks that she's doing the right thing, encouraging me to get another position, whatever. So the next thing, okay, so I was in the squat, everything was going really quickly, and then because he was starting to descend, And I guess, they're checking me, like doing the Doppler and stuff, like their protocol. And they must have known or something, because then they started to encourage me. Like my body started pushing. I felt that, like, I mean, it's not
Mhm.
like I'm pushing, but I felt that intense pressure building. And that, that, what do I call that? Like, the word that like you used to describe like an animal, like it's not
Fetal
animalistic.
ejection. Oh no, you're
The primal, that's the word I'm looking for.
primal.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
like the primal sounds started coming out, like this guttural, like deep, like sound that I was making. I was like, oh my goodness, like, whoa, this baby's coming right now. And then they had the audacity to tell me to lay back in the tub. And I was so upset. Like, it's all happening so fast. I didn't have time to be like angry at them. I just listened. So they like laid me back in the tub, and then I remember my doula like holding one of my legs back, and they were, yes, like so hospitally. Like, I felt like this isn't what I came here for. So then they started encouraging me to push, like as if my body wasn't already doing that. I mean, like, I that bothered me the most. And so they're like pushing my leg back, and they're like, push, 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 like the whole purple pushing thing, like just like Hollywood, but like in the birth center in the tub. Like, it's not supposed to be like that. So I got really upset about that. Especially afterwards. Like, in the moment, I wasn't thinking about that, but I didn't like it. And it was way more painful. I tore because of it. Because I did not tear in my free birth. Um, so I had a first degree tear. It wasn't that bad, obviously, but still, like, I think it could have been prevented if it wasn't forced like that. Um, and then when he came out, um, I think he was fine. He didn't cry right away. He was perfect. I felt intuitively that everything was fine. He was just he was squinting his face. His color started changing, but they started to kind of freak out a little bit. They were like, trying to rub him more. Like, I was holding his hands. I couldn't pull him to my chest because his cord was really short. So I just held him on my knees there. And it, like, I was fine. Like, I just knew everything was fine. And then they were checking his heart rate, and they said he's not really breathing. But this was like right after he was born. And so it was like they like needed to force him to breathe. So they started like rubbing him more. They did leave him on my knees. Thank God. Like, they didn't take him away. But um or try to, but they started like rubbing him more and suctioning him and stuff, like, but they left him there. And then I heard my husband even say, like, is he okay? And they were like, oh yeah, he's okay, he's fine. But like, they said he's not really breathing. And then there's actually a little video, and then my husband turned off the video because he got scared, because they said he's not really breathing. And then but then it was fine. Like, everything was fine, nothing happened. It was so weird. Like, yeah. Like, even in hindsight, like looking back, I'm like, why were they freaking out? I've seen hundreds of births since then, and like, it was so normal. Like, there was nothing.
Yeah.
So
It's so
then,
weird
yeah,
how I feel like the medical midwives just truly do not understand physiological birth. And
literally,
so it's like it's almost just like it's programmed in them to do these routine, like, quote unquote emergency protocols in non-emergency situations, just as a way to like prevent what they're so scared of happening. And yeah, no, you're totally right, but continue.
yeah. So then, I was in the tub for a short time. I don't know how long, just as long as I really felt comfortable. But then they started saying, okay, we should probably get up. And I think they wanted me to. I'm trying to remember. Like, they just were encouraging me to start to get up. I think I was in there for maybe like 15 minutes, if that. Like, it was not a long time. And then as soon as I stood up, like, I felt the pressure of the placenta coming down, and it just came out. Like, it was a little bit painful, not like too bad. But probably because the tear, especially. And
Hmm.
it just popped out, and no problem. I did not have excessive bleeding from what I understand in hindsight. I didn't know what was going on because I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was just focused on my baby, like, and I carried him to the bed. We were there laying there for probably like an hour before we had cut his cord. It was really relaxed at the end. But when I got into the bed, they started telling me, they were like, we're going to, um, we're going to whatever. I don't remember what they said, but they were starting to do the fundal massage, and I was telling them that it was hurting and I didn't like it. And they just kept doing it. They said, we have to do this and we have to make sure your uterus is going down and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, this really hurts. Like I was wincing, and I was holding the baby and trying to, like do my first latch and everything. So I really hated the fundal massage, like with so much anger. I hated that. And then like within just a few minutes of that, just a short time went by that they were like, we're gonna go ahead and just give you a shot of Pitocin just to make sure. And I was like, I feel okay. Like I didn't have time. I at the time I didn't feel like I had a voice to say anything against that. Apparently my husband, because we talked about it not long after all of that, he was like, I don't know why they did that. Like everything seemed fine. They didn't ask you, they didn't explain anything to you. And I'm like, yeah, that was weird. Like, what do you mean just in case? Like, maybe if you hadn't done this fundal massage, whatever. Anyways, I was not excessively bleeding, but they gave me the Pitocin shot anyways. And everything from there was like just normal. I don't remember having any issues or anything, thank God. Like no like side effects that I was aware of or whatever. Breastfeeding was fine, everything. So I went home like a couple hours later. We just kind of hung out and relaxed, and I got dressed and we left. So that was the first birth. You can see I kind of like filled in the areas where I was upset about things. And
Yeah.
even though I will never compare that to the amount of trauma that another mom has experienced in her birth, but it was still not, I did not feel fully autonomous in my birth. And that was very upsetting for me. And
Yeah.
I actually had a really hard time, like for the first week postpartum, like I couldn't stop talking about it because I was like, this is not how it was supposed to go. And I felt like it was taken from me, like the things that I had wanted. And to be honest with you, I didn't even think I had to talk about them in my pregnancy because I thought they were just a given because I was giving birth in a birth center with midwives that were supposed to respect birth. And my expectations were met with disappointment. And a lot of things have changed actually. That birth center's gotten significantly more off my radar. Like I would not even recommend anyone to go there if they didn't have another choice or whatever. But yeah, so that's the first birth.
I just want to say, like, kudos to you for talking about it and like being so willing to address like the discomfort, the disappointing things that took place that, were triggering, because I feel like it's not it's not like typical for a woman to like realize that there's actually something like really wrong with that, like in the moment, and then be so willing to like address that, because there's this need to like protect the birth experience, because it's supposed to be sacred, and you imagine it being this like beautiful thing, and so to have disappointment, even if it's you know not as like quote unquote serious as some other birth trauma, it's still, that's your experience and it's
Yeah.
valid to have those feelings. But I think it's really hard for a lot of women to address that disappointment, because then in
Mm-hmm.
some way that shows like, I don't know, not being grateful for having a healthy baby, that whole thing, which I think is so toxic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also really helpful in helping us process the trauma so that we don't have to like hold on to it and like be angry. I think so much of like
Yeah.
postpartum anger and anxiety and depression is associated with, the birth trauma, and even more so the unwillingness to address the birth trauma. I think that's like a big factor. So, yeah, I just want to say that because unfortunately that sounds like a very typical birth center birth. These
Yeah.
are actually just protocols.
Yep.
Everyone gets stuck with Pitocin, even if they're not having a hemorrhage. Like these are just
Mm-hmm.
like routine things. They're way more medical than I think most people realize until they,
Yeah.
experience it themselves. So, okay, so you're here post birth, you're, debriefing all of this. And so, how is your postpartum after this birth?
So that you actually made me think of something when you were saying that. Um, the postpartum bleeding I had after my son was very heavy. I don't think that it was unusual or anything. Like it's not like I was like having a problem, but it was very heavy. And I did pass some very large clots. I don't know for sure if that could be because of the Pitocin. I just compare it to my second birth where I had almost no bleeding. And like my postpartum bleeding was so minimal that I was literally just wearing like one, whatever it was like. I had the diaper, the postpartum diapers at one point in the beginning, and then just pads. And like I literally was using like one a day. And like with my first, I was changing them like 2 or 3 times a day. And my bleeding was significantly shorter with my son. I mean, with my daughter, the second one. With the first, I bled like a good 4 or 5 weeks. Whereas with my daughter, like I stopped bleeding after like 2 weeks. It was like nothing.
Yeah.
So that was like really interesting, the difference. I didn't know back then. I didn't have anything to compare it to, but my postpartum experience was kind of rough because everybody thought I was such a rock star that I had given birth so quick. And we actually stopped at my mom's house on the way home from the birth center because she made breakfast for us. But I really resented the fact that I was not brought to and catered to in my first week. That was really hard because and everybody wanted to hold the baby. And um I they of course they didn't like take him a lot, but I didn't want him being taken at all. And it was really hard that it wasn't that they waited for me to offer him. It was like this expectation. And I actually had to educate my mom a lot on that after for my second birth. I prepared her because she would come over and she would bring food and then she'd say, all right, like now my payment, like being able to the baby. And I felt very angry about that. And of course, like all those postpartum hormones and the feelings that I had were like intensified. And I was very upset. I cried a lot in my first week because of that. Even the second week, I was also expected to come out. It was Christmas time, right? He was born on the 20th. Christmas was 5 days later. So it was, we're supposed to go to my mom's for Christmas. And I think Christmas Eve, even we were over there, something like that. And I'm like, I just want to be laying in bed. Like we even went to like a springs that's nearby. I think he was like a week old and they pushed me around in a wheelchair so I didn't have to walk. But it was like, what the heck? Like, this is really contrary to what I wanted. I wanted to be laying in bed and I didn't feel like I had the voice back then. Like, even my doula, I would text her to get emotional support because I was so upset about how it was going. And, um, and she would tell me, like, do I need to come over and make you lay in bed? Like she was trying to be sweet. Like, I will make it happen, use me as your call or whatever. But I kind of just put up with it. And it actually was very, really hard for me for months my experience postpartum was like that. My mom did finally figure it out. And like other people after the first week, which was like the most critical week, they turned around and they started cutting and being more supportive and stuff. And my in-laws were really great, but they didn't come till he was like 2 months old. So it was like, I didn't have a lot of support. My husband had to go back to work after just a few days because we own our businesses and it was just a lot. Um, but I was doing my best. Um, so that was the postpartum experience as a nutshell. Like I'm not going to say that it was horrible. It's just that it just wasn't exactly how I had envisioned it.
Yeah. So
So
now,
that was part.
um, and so then how long after did you get pregnant with your daughter?
So we wanted, well, at first I was like, oh my God, I'm never doing this again. Like I wanted another baby, but I did not want to do it again. Like it was just not there. And then we did have a plan. We wanted to space our kids. So we wanted like around 3 years age gap. And then I started getting baby fever when he was like a year and a half. And so I was like, okay, maybe let's start planning this. Like, well, okay, if we do it this month, she'll be born, or, the baby will be born around this time. I'm like, okay, so let's like figure out when we want to do this. And the baby fever was so strong that I was like, okay, maybe we can do it a little closer than 3 years. I was like, let's like push it back a little bit because I just like I want another baby. So then um we planned it. Actually, we were in Dominican Republic for my birthday. And so I was like, let's just try it. I was like 5 days. I mean, I don't know exactly when my ovulation was because I just used like the calendar. And I know it's like pretty close, but I don't know. I was experimenting. I'm like, let's do it like 5 days ahead of time. And I got pregnant. I did not expect to because I was like, that was really like far ahead. I didn't think it was going to work. It's like what, 10% chance of getting pregnant that early. So, yeah, so then I like didn't get my period for like 2 days. And so I took a test and I was pregnant. So I was like super excited. I did a little video because I didn't think it was going to be positive. I'll probably have to do this again, next time we try it. So, but yeah, I got pregnant first try. I actually got pregnant with my first. I mentioned that part on our honeymoon. Literally the first time that we actually like made love, literally got pregnant. So
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
I know because
That's
we wanted to wait.
amazing. Oh my
I
goodness,
shouldn't
I
have been
love
so
that.
early, but so we definitely get pregnant as soon as we want to and not when we don't want to. Um, yeah, so
Wow.
it's really, so she was playing to the day and then, he was a surprise, but um, yeah, so then I had spent months. I got to give some preface. I had spent months searching for a birth keeper because I already knew what I didn't want to do the second time. And I did interview one licensed midwife. Actually, I guess I talked to two, but I really like interviewed one of them while I was pregnant because I actually just wanted to pick her brain and like I wanted to kind of see like where she was coming from and stuff. I do believe she's a really good midwife, but I know that she's also bound by the state in different ways because of her license. And so that was one of the things that I don't want to be bound by anybody, It like
Yeah.
it became that drive in me that was like, I'm gonna do this exactly how I want, where I want and with who I want. Like, and that's all that matters. And I really went hard into it. I started educating my mom on postpartum, like because she hadn't had a respectful postpartum when she had us. I don't think she knew like I don't know, I think she was excited too just about the baby. She didn't think about like my feelings and she really that changed this time around. But yeah, so I went pretty hard. I was educating myself like crazy. And this was before I was even pregnant. Like I was searching and searching. I could not find a good birth keeper in my area. That was really difficult. I even checked out the Free Birth Society, but I did not resonate with a lot of their ideals. And so I was like, I'm not going to pay $500 for a directory. I was like, I can't do that. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep searching. So I went on Facebook and I went into an unassisted home birth Facebook group that had like over 7,000 members. And I was like, I got to find somebody here. And so I put like my message out. I had very specific criteria. I had been praying and asking God for like somebody that would mesh with the ideals that I had. We needed to be on the same page spiritually. We needed to be on the same page, the belief in the physiological birth and all that, which obviously birth keepers do that. But I just, I wanted something very specific. And I literally gave a description on the page of this Facebook group. And I started getting people responding like immediately. I was like, no way. Like, this is actually going to happen. And I got the information for one birth keeper who used to be here in Florida. They didn't know there were two twin home birth moms that actually had given birth so fast she didn't make it, but they both recommended her and they were like, she's really good. So I reached out to her and then she referred me to somebody that she had trained that was still living here. She lives like almost 2 hours away from me. And I was like, this is kind of far. I had a fast birth the first time, but you know what? I'm gonna risk it. And I reached out to her. Ironically, she had the exact same name that I have, like spelled the same way and everything, and our names are not common. And she fit all the criteria. She checked all the boxes. We ended up talking for like 2 hours, and we were like, oh my goodness, like this was so meant to be. So we connected really strong, and that was like, I guess like a month or two before I got pregnant. And so she actually had me like saved in her phone as trying to conceive, even though like I wasn't there yet, you know. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, girl, like it's on, you know. And so we became friends, like, and that's what I wanted. Like I wanted a friend vibe in my birth. Like I don't want somebody there, you know, all loved up and like I only saw you, you know, for prenatal appointments, whatever. It's like we became friends, and that was huge for us. So we did do prenatals. She lived 2 hours away, so like she'd just come out and see me. We scheduled. I think we had like 5 times that we met while I was pregnant, and um. I did use a Doppler. I can't, I mean, I know everybody's definition of wild pregnancy is different. We used it the first time, the first appointment at 12 weeks, because for me, listening to the heartbeat was something really special with my first. And so, like, I wanted to have that experience the first time. And then for the rest of the pregnancy, we used a fetoscope because I knew at some point, you know, like around 22 weeks, it was possible. I actually ordered my own so I could listen to her anytime I wanted. I did not wait to find out the gender. We did the sneak peek gender reveal test because I was just so excited to find out. And I had prayed for a girl. I had pleaded with God for a girl. Like that was a big deal for me because of multiple reasons. I know there's like not enough time for me to explain all that here. I don't care what gender baby I get. Like I want to make sure that disclaimer is there. But my husband and I have some differences on some things with boys. I don't probably have to say anything. Everybody will know what I'm talking about. So I was like,
Yeah.
I can't go through
Yeah.
that again. Don't want to deal with that, you know? And
Yep.
it was something that we agreed to disagree, and I had to kind of submit to that, in a sense. So that's a long
Yeah.
story. But anyways, so I was like, nope, God, give me a girl. I can't. Like either that or change my husband's mind. Well, my husband's mind
Yeah.
wasn't changed. I got my girl. So it was perfect. When we found out we had a girl, we did a little gender reveal video, like with my son in the middle, and it was the two of us, and we were all just like looking at each other, like, "Oh my goodness," you know, and like scrolling down to get the
That's so
results, and we saw the
sweet.
girl, and we all screamed. I mean, it was just like we were all so excited. You know, my husband was just as excited. So yeah, I got my girl, and then the pregnancy was perfect. It went perfectly smooth. First trimester was miserable, just like the first baby. Like that was pretty textbook. And then after that, nothing. You know, I checked my own blood pressure when I kind of felt like I was like feeling really tired or kind of like, oh, you know, just not feeling optimal, just see, you know, and I had like my own blood pressure cuff thing. So I did that. Like I said, I listened to him listened to her whenever I wanted to, which was fun. And yeah, our prenatal appointments were literally just like sitting, writing notes, listening to the baby, talking about what I ate that day. We drank tea together, and it was just like fun. It was like this is prenatal care, and like I go outside and sit in the sun every single day. I was like, get my prenatal care, you know. Um, took my supplements like for me, which were like tinctures, herbal stuff. I drank my red raspberry leaf every day. Just like did all the stuff I'm like that was nourishing. Like I just nourished myself and spent time with people I wanted to be with. I protected my boundaries like crazy with that pregnancy. Like I had a good friend that we kind of like butt heads sometimes, and she did not 100% support me free birthing. So I just told her like, listen, girl, if it's gonna be something controversial, let's skip it. Like I can't even talk to you about it. I'm just cutting that off right now. So I became really, really tough on setting my boundaries in that pregnancy, with everything and everyone. So that was amazing. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
ironically, at 38 weeks, this is where things get a little different though, but I started to feel like, um, not worried or concerned, but like every time we measured, because we did measure, like just for fun, just to see like where am I at. And like I was always measuring a little smaller, which obviously those measurements are like really, there's a range. And that was normal for me. But like when we would belly map, it was like she just felt kind of small. And I was like, that's unusual because my first baby was almost 8 pounds. And I'm like, usually, you know, subsequent babies are usually bigger or at least like around the same, just statistically or whatever, what I've seen. So I was like, I wonder why she's like feels small. And it was really just like her positioning that it was hard to feel her because where she was and because she was already getting engaged. But we didn't know that because I didn't feel anything. I didn't know what that would feel like. I didn't feel anything like that with my first. So I was like, I don't know why she feels small. I went to see a friend midwife like a acquaintance, I should say. And I was like, hey, can you just belly map me? Like, just what do you feel? And so she was like, yeah, like, okay, feeling. She's like, well, she feels good. She's in a good position. She feels like, she was head down. Like, I just had both head down births. She felt like, she was kind of small though. Like, she said that she felt like she was maybe like a 6 pounder. And I was like, that's really weird. Like at 38 weeks, I'm like 6 pounds. So to be honest with you, some of that started getting in my head a little bit. And she knew I was having a free birth. And I did tell her that I was like feeling like, I don't know, like I just want to make sure everything is okay. So I started getting in my head a little bit. And she was like, listen, she just looked at me. She was like, you're having a free birth. You need to get out of your head. She's like, you need to just get in the zone and just, everything is fine. And if you feel like you're so inclined, she's like, if you want to, get an ultrasound. I have somebody. If you don't do it. She's like, but you don't need to do anything. She's like, just do what you feel like is the right thing. And so I was like, well, I went back and forth, talked to my husband, prayed about it, and um I don't feel like I had like any direction either way, but I was like, I'm just gonna get it. She comes to your house. I was like, that sounds nice. I didn't have any ultrasounds, obviously, the whole pregnancy. And I was already like nearing 39 weeks. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get this ultrasound, just make sure everything looks good, even though they're not that accurate. This is something else I learned in this process. I already knew ultrasounds weren't that accurate, but like, I kind of just, I don't know. I needed that at the time. I needed that peace of mind. So she
Yeah.
came. It was perfect. Like she did everything really nice, really gentle. Like she puts it up on your TV, you lay on your couch. I really liked that. Like if somebody wants an ultrasound, like that's how it should be. It should not be this like, clinical like
Yeah.
experience. Um, so she was like, yeah, her head's fully engaged. She's looking like 6 pounds, 13 ounces. I was like, okay, everything's perfectly fine. Your placenta looks great, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, that's all I needed to know. Like, whatever. So then 2 days later, I go into labor and give birth. I was 38 weeks and 6 days exactly. And my labor was literally like just a few minutes shy of 3 hours, just under 3 hours. So yeah, it came quick. My birth keeper and my photographer, I also had my friend there was a photographer. They showed up, like my photographer got there about 15 minutes before she was born, and the birth keeper showed up like 5 minutes later. Like everything was really fast. Um, I got into the pool. They were like literally filling the pool like as she was descending. I was like, I need to get in the pool. I was like, is the pool ready? And because I was like in the other room. And I got in the pool like no joke 5 minutes before she came out. And my son was there like holding the hose helping fill it. And it wasn't totally full, but it was fine. It was a good enough. And he was like trying to spray me with the hose. That was pretty funny.
That is
Not like in the
adorable.
moment. It was really cute. Like it was kind of in the moment. I was just like, oh, somebody like, they held his hand down,
Yeah.
but it was like, don't spray me. And then, yeah, like she was coming like fast fire, man. Like I was hands and knees. That's the position I like, obviously, both times around. I had a little support up, like holding the edge of the tub. That really helped me a lot to feel grounded, like to be on my knees, but like holding something above. And I had like the handlebars of the pool was really nice. And then I didn't even get my shorts off. Like I was yelling. I was like, her name is Raina. I was like, Raina, come and take my shorts off, because I was like having contractions on top of each other, and my body was pushing, and I was like, I don't have time. I don't have the ability to do this myself
Yeah.
right now. Like, would help me. I was like, help me. So she like ran over, and like I'm like in the middle of a contraction, like lifting my leg, trying to get my shorts off. It was pretty funny. And then she pulled my shirt off too, because she wanted, obviously to have some bare skin for the baby. And then because I was like fully dressed, like I wasn't ready. It happened way too fast again. um, so then her head like literally started coming out, and then her whole body just shot out. Like it was like all in one.
That's
And I pulled her up
amazing.
out of the water, and it was like just the most amazing thing ever. Like I can't even tell you, like I was so empowered. Like I told everybody what to do, how to do it. It was like I didn't need anything until I needed it. And everybody respected that. my husband was amazing. He already knew what to do. He was amazing the first time too. So it was just like, oh, it was just like this huge release. It was amazing. My placenta birth was a little bit intense. Because I don't know, I've heard like with second babies too, like, you know, you can contract more, like have the after pains more. And that definitely happened for me. The placenta came out like 20 to 30 minutes later, give or take. I had to get up out of the pool because I just like could not handle like sitting there contracting. So I got up and I was like with support. My husband like held me up, and my birth keeper like walked underneath me with a bowl just in case it was coming out. It was pretty funny. And then in the middle of the living room, I just like felt that bearing down, and my husband held me up, and I literally like birthed it. It felt like I was having another like small baby. It was pretty rough. But she
Yeah.
caught it, and it was perfect. Like I said, my bleeding was so normal. Like everything was great. No tearing. Um, yeah, it was like, I felt like I was on top of the world. I mean, I had like, you know, after pains and stuff that was not comfortable. I used after ease, so that did help. But I was like in all my glory. I don't know how else to explain it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you were in your power, that it's just such a night and day experience.
Mhm.
Especially I feel like coming from, having a birth where you felt disempowered and then to have that redemptive, experience, it's just I can only imagine. I have yet to have my redemptive birth experience, but
Oh,
God willing, I will be this year. So, but yeah, I mean, I hear it time and time again described just the way you're talking about it. And yeah, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you made that decision for yourself and your family because, it has such a ripple effect. And I feel like having a birth like yours is it's what the family needs.
yes, absolutely. A family-centered birth. And I just have to throw this in here. The ultrasound tech like measured her at 6 pounds, 13 ounces. She came out 7 pounds and 13 ounces. So
Oh
all of the
my
Bella and
goodness.
like nothing was accurate because it's just the way she was laying in there. Like it's just what it
Hmm.
is, you know. And she was a half inch longer than my son. My son was 20 inches, she was 20 and a half. So she was not no small baby.
He
and
wasn't,
oh,
yeah.
and I was not small, so I was like,
That's
oh, like it's kind of
Yeah.
funny,
No,
but
sometimes it's just the position that, will make a baby seem either small or big. It can go either way, and I hear it all the time. And yeah, I understand, wanting to have that peace of mind, especially when you're choosing to birth out of the system and you bringing fear into that is just not what you need. It's not
yeah,
helpful. And so whatever you have to do to, you know, uh process that and overcome it, like do it, and everything was on your terms. You
yes,
decided that, you wanted that for some peace of mind and it gave you the peace of mind. And yeah, I mean, I see nothing wrong with that. I find it funny though because it is so inaccurate, and I actually have never heard a story where the sonogram was accurate on the weight ever.
yeah, yeah,
but but yeah, it's funny. I feel like it's God's way of kind of like laughing at us a little, like you humans, you want to know everything.
exactly. Like no, I totally agree, to be honest with you. And it is funny, like, I like that you said though that it was in my power, it was my choice, and it was exactly what you said, that peace of mind that I chose to have going into the birth because I wouldn't have had it any other way. You know, if there had been some kind of like real emergency that came up, like a placental abruption or something, or if I had had a car accident, you know, I would have definitely gotten myself checked out. I am not like, oh, all or nothing, nothing medical. But like, if I need it, I'll get it. If I don't need it, I'm absolutely not going to get it. Like,
Yeah,
and so it's one
yeah.
of those things that's like, but that's the point. It's like it's informed decision making. And that's why, you know, I feel I feel safe in knowing that I had one ultrasound that was maybe like a total of 15 or 20 minutes, and 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 everything was fine. It's like, would I do it again? I don't know. Probably not. I don't, because I feel even more secure in knowing what I know. But if it did come up for some reason, I like, if something, I'm not afraid to use modern technology if I need it. I don't feel like it's there as a tool. It's not there. It's like screen time with your kids. Okay, yes, would it be
Yeah.
better maybe if you didn't do it at all? Sure. But like, do I sometimes need it? Yeah. It's like,
Or do you sometimes just want it? I think it's okay
yeah,
to just want something too. And
totally.
to not feel shame around that. I think that, yeah, um, although I love, love, love what the free birth movement has, caused, just this, like, knowing that this exists for women, it's beautiful. It's overall very positive. But yeah, I think sometimes people are a little extreme, and I think everyone should take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And just at
Yep.
the end of the day, if you are in your power and you are doing it on your terms and you're the authority, then there's no harm. There's no harm done, in making decisions for what feels best for you. So,
Yep.
yeah, I love your
Um,
story so much. I love it. Like, so, so empowering. And I'm just so happy that you had that beautiful experience. And yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Raina.
Thank you so much for having me and for asking me to share it. This is the first time I've shared it like kind of publicly, so that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I'm so glad that other women will get to hear your story. And I know that, hearing these stories can be life-changing. Sometimes
Yeah.
all you need is to hear another woman share something that relates to you, and that's just enough encouragement to get you to make a decision that's right for you. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing, and I know you have your little ones around, and I'm so grateful that they were so chill this whole time. I know it was a
Yeah.
lot to juggle for you, but we did it, we made it,
Yes,
and
we
yeah,
did.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you. All right, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Birth and Rebirth podcast. And if you enjoy hearing these episodes, please leave a 5-star review so that this podcast can fall on the ears of more women who need to hear this encouragement. Thank you for your support, and God bless.